Hey guys, I'm Hannah Cox with Base Politics, back with my show, COPAGANDA, and this week we're returning to a case some of you might be familiar with. The case of Eric Garner was a massively covered one, and it was one of the initial cases that led to the growth of the Black Lives Matter movement. Let's roll this clip.
Don't worry, because he was just sitting here. I just came here. Sitting here.
Mind my business. The fight breaker, I stop it. Don't say you can put it up on me.
That's all right.
The people that's fighting just don't walk away? Are you serious? I didn't do nothing. Where did I go?
Then before
What
that.
am my ID on me? Take you left for what? I didn't sell anything. I did nothing. We sitting here the whole time. Mind our business. What are you talking about?
I watched it.
You watch me do what? Who did I sell cigarette to? To whom?
Not that retro. There's another guy.
Easy way or hard way for what? Every time you see me, you want to mess with me. I'm tired of it. It stops today.
This guy right here is forcibly trying to lock somebody up for breaking up a fight.
Everybody standing here, they told you I didn't do nothing. I did not sell nothing. Because every time you see me, you want to harass me, you want to stop me, trying to sell cigarettes. I'm minding my business, officer. I'm minding my business. Please just leave me alone. I told you the last time, please just leave me alone. Please, don't touch me. Don't touch me.
Hold on.
No, listen, don't touch me, please.
Came over.
Not touch me. Damn, man.
Stop. Give your hands, buddy.
Put your hand behind your back. I can't breathe. 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 I can't breathe.
Once again, police beating up on people.
Back
Look
up.
right here.
Back up, then get on that steps.
Okay.
Back up.
All he did was break up a fight. And this is what happens for breaking up a fight. This crazy.
Everybody back up, back up.
Something's wrong with him.
He can't breathe. Look, now I mean, they gave this man a seizure.
Yo, move out the way. Yo.
It's my brother. We live
You know
here.
what? Back up this way. Everybody now back up. It's now going to become a crisis. Back it up. Back it up. Come
I'm going to my house.
No. This way. Let's go.
Can't go in my
Either
house?
the house or that way.
All right, I go that way.
Pick a choice.
I'm getting my
Let's
bike.
Go. You had your chance to get your bike, sir. Staying over there. Right now we have seen.
Let's get into the details of the case. First of all, Eric Garner was a 43-year-old father of 6 at the time that he was murdered. He was heading to dinner at a Wild Wings with his friends Ramsey Orta when a fight broke out along their path. Garner, who you can tell from the video was a pretty large man, actually went and interrupted the fight. However, when police arrived at the scene, they actually proceeded to try to arrest Eric Garner because they said he was guilty of selling loose, untaxed cigarettes. Now, side note, let me explain what this means. For those of you who don't live in New York City, selling loosies is something the city has been overly concerned with for over a decade. Basically, the practice gained popularity after the city placed excessive taxes on cigarettes, making the average pack something like $12.50 by 2011. Who even knows how much it is now? Obviously, many lower and middle income people cannot afford to buy a pack of cigarettes at $12.50 all that often, and so they will look to people on the street selling loose cigarettes. In that case, you can buy them for maybe 75 cents, $1, get your hit, keep it moving, and not be out the whole price of a pack of cigarettes. And this is just an important point about product bans in general and high taxes. They just lead to black markets. New York City has this idea that if you put high taxes on things that are bad for you, that will make people consume less of them. But in reality, people will just find workarounds. New York City, though, which is historically always looking for cash because their policies are off the rocker, is very concerned about obtaining those taxes that they would get on a pack of cigarettes. And so they spent a lot of time and police resources, and yes, even more tax dollars on trying to police these people who were doing nothing more than selling loose cigarettes in the street. Now, in the video, we see Garner start to argue with police about the charges because he obviously wasn't in the process of trying to sell loose cigarettes when this all went down, at least by everything we see on camera. And then he is very swiftly rushed by a gang, a literal gang of police officers, one of which, Daniel Pataleo, actually places his arm around Eric Garner's neck in a chokehold. It's important to know that in 2014, this move was already outlawed by the NYPD. You also see another officer push Eric Garner's face into the cement, and as they are on top of him, I mean, I can't even count how many police officers that is that are literally on top of this man, you hear him say, "I can't breathe," over and over. Ultimately, Eric Garner said, "I can't breathe," 11 times before he died. His friend Orta videoed the entire encounter and said that Garner was like the neighborhood dad. He was devastated by this event. An autopsy indicated that Garner's death resulted from compression of the neck, compression of the chest, and prone positioning during physical restraint by police. It also notes that asthma, heart disease, and obesity were contributing factors, but notably, there were no drugs or alcohol in this man's system when he died. And to be very clear, even if there had been, it would not justify the police murdering him in the street. So cut the crap with those kinds of excuses to those of you who are doing it. I'm fed up with it. Now, the video of this crime quickly gained traction. It went viral. There was public outcry. People were really upset at this, as they should have been. And the actions of the police in this video did lead to mass denouncements of their behavior from everybody from the mayor of the city to the governor of New York to many within the criminal justice community to the Black community. Most people recognize that this was an egregious crime on the part of the NYPD. But while the behavior of the police in the video is abhorrent, the behavior by the department didn't get any better in the fallout. Pantaleo, who was the officer we see actually place Eric Garner in a chokehold, was ordered to turn in his badge and gun, but he was not initially fired. The 4 emergency medical workers who responded to the scene were suspended without pay, and 1 other of the officers was assigned to desk duty. Nothing happened to the rest of the people in this video, who were all complicit in murdering this man. Officer Pantaleo remained on the police force for 5 more years, until he was ultimately fired and stripped of his pension benefit in 2019 after a police administrative judge found him guilty of violating a department ban on chokeholds. Why did it take them 5 years to assess that? I would love to know. Meanwhile, a leak by an investigator showed Pantaleo had 7 misconduct cases investigated against him and 17 complaints in the 5 years before Eric Garner's death in 2014. The release of the records actually came on the heels of the New York State Legislature repealing a law known as 50A, which at the time shielded police disciplinary records from being viewed by the public for years. As for some of the rest of the officers involved in this, Sergeant Kizzy Adonis, he lost 20 vacation days after being accused of failing to properly supervise his officers at the scene. And Lieutenant Christopher Bannon, a police commander, actually texted one of the officers that Mr. Garner's death was, quote, not a big deal because they were, quote, effecting a lawful arrest. New York Mayor Bill de Blasio said he was, quote, very troubled by the footage, but a grand jury actually did not indict the officer and federal prosecutors declined to pursue civil rights charges. So really nothing major happened because of any of this. The city and the police department went into damage control mode after this video was leaked, and they actually started working to smear Garner's name himself. Though we've never been able to get answers on how exactly this happened, Eric Garner had a sealed prior record that was released in part of the effort to smear his name and blame him for his own demise. Many members of his family have become activists, and they actually continued to press for information that the department refused to hand over for some time. They wanted to know what the exact chain of events were that led to his death, what medical care he received at the scene, and how the sealed record was leaked. In 2019, the family actually sought a judicial inquiry, which is a rare process under the city charter, to answer those questions. The inquiry centered on 5 subjects, including the probable cause for Mr. Garner's arrest in the first place, and to what extent the actions of the officers other than Mr. Pantaleo were investigated or resulted in discipline. Erica M. Edwards, a Manhattan Supreme Court justice who presided over that, ruled that several major players from whom Mr. Garner's family members sought testimony would not have to participate in the inquiry, including Mayor Bill de Blasio, the city's chief medical examiner, and every police commissioner since 2014. So essentially, the police that murdered Eric Garner broke the law. Their behavior was completely inexcusable. Everybody recognized that, and yet nothing really ever happened to anybody that was responsible for this from the top down. And this is why I think that every new law legislators pass should end with, or we will kill you. Because that really is the end result of many of these laws. You can pass something as innocuous as a tax on New York cigarettes, but when somebody finds a way around paying it, police can use that as a justification for literally murdering you in the streets, and then they will smear your name after they do it. And no matter how much media attention you get, there will still be a significant part of the population that continues continues to defend the police and their actions no matter what, that don't bother to do their basic due diligence in seeking information about the details of the case, that blame the victims of state violence for their own demise, and that continue to let lawmakers get away with passing bogus laws that we can ultimately be murdered in the streets over. Something has to give, and for that to happen, we need to have true responsibility and accountability for police on the force. That means we have to get rid of things like qualified immunity that actually prevent police or any other government actors from being sued when they violate your rights or kill you. We also need to get rid of police unions that continue to use your own tax dollars against you to lobby against criminal justice reform laws that would ensure there's true accountability when things like this happen, that continue to protect bad police officers like Pantaleo, and that continue to spread misinformation in the media about their actions and work to block transparency about their disciplinary actions behind the scenes. None of this is acceptable. We also need to start holding lawmakers responsible when they are passing laws that have nothing to do with protecting the person or property of the American public. That is the only reason the government should be in place. That is the only reason we should have laws on the books are to protect those two things. And when they start involving themselves in things that are outside of that, you ultimately get people killed. All right, guys, that's a wrap for this week. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think about this case. Be sure to subscribe to my channel. And until next week, stay based.